This was a huge mistake. What was I thinking? Welcome. Y'all know we gotta get these nails together. Let's go ahead and mix these colors together because they don't be the right color sometimes. So I'm just gonna go in with this orange, this white, and this yellow from all D&D and my pigment powders. You gotta have your pigment powders. So cute. I'm gonna be using a pink today though. And this is the colors that I'm gonna be using to create the leaves and give it that extra little oomph and pizzazz. I already applied my matte top coat, but I'm going to go in with a little acetone and a lint-free wipe and wipe them back down because I was moving around a lot and I don't need them excess oils affecting my gel polish application. You never notice how that small smudge of oil can affect your whole nail, and it can. That's why you got to make sure you scrub it real nice and good. After I do all that, I went ahead and I pulled out my little swatch palette because I was going to go ahead and swatch this yellow that I was going to do for the French tips and mix this color together. But then that's when I quickly noticed, like, in the midst of me mixing this color, it is not the color that I wanted. I'm like, okay, what can I do to kind of tweak it? But it was really nothing I could do until I had looked at the yellow and I'm like, okay, let me test it out on my nail first and see how it comes out. And why was it the original yellow that was in the bottle was the exact color that I was going for. So instead of me mixing all that, I was like, I just wasted my time. But I didn't really waste my time because I used that yellow for something else in the nails. Y'all go see. What I just did here was an example of the saying, if it's not broke, don't try to fix it. But I tried to fix it. But I just left in this clip because I wanted to show y'all the mistakes that I still be making sometimes. Like I be doing some outlandish things, trying to come up with these colors and see if I could find something better than the original. And that's when I quickly noticed the original is better. Sometimes, not always. So if you feel like you want to mix a color and you could get a better color, go for it. It's all about trial and error. It's all about experimenting. My first glance looking at the bottle, I hated the color just based off of the colors that the manufacturers had. I'm assuming from the company to, like, you know how they try to make it match the color that's like the color is going to actually be. But that color was just so off. I was like, I hate this. But the more I looked at it and I actually put it on my nail, it was really giving that golden yellow that I was going for. But you know, from the bottle, it seems kind of more like a mustard. Or not even a mustard, orange, like, I don't know. After laying out my yellow, I decided to lay out my orange because I was like, okay, I can do like a alternating colors type of French tip because I didn't just want to do one plain French tip because y'all know I like to give, well, some of y'all don't, if you're new, I like to have my nail art to have some type of background, and I didn't want it all to have the same background, so I just switched it up. First, going in with the yellow, I'm just going to create a guideline for the French tips because I have had my fair share of French tips, trying different methods and trying different ways, Googling methods, Googling different ways, and it's been a struggle. I have gotten more confident with doing them, but I still feel like I haven't really mastered them yet to where I could just do them in one little swipe and be good to go. Like, it's been times where I have to look at it and I end up like wiping it off and starting over again. But I do have a video that I just posted going into more detail about French tips and the products that I use to improve my French tips. So go ahead and check out that video. It'll be linked in the description down below. Over time, you do start to like get better and get more comfortable with the swing of things, especially with doing nail art or even French tips, which are like the main nail art that everybody is like into now. And when you're improving and going through that trial and error, I know y'all probably tired of me saying trial and error, but that's really what it is the trial and error stage. Like, you have to get through that stage in order to become better. But trust me, with these videos, you wouldn't even have to go through that. All you have to do is listen to me and listen to the tips that I'm giving y'all and just float away like a little butterfly. Before you go ahead and spread your wings and doing these things on other people, you must want to test it out on yourself. Now, the only difference is when you do it on yourself, it can come out a different way than it would come out if you're actually doing it on a person. That's what I had to learn, especially with practicing on myself. Is sometimes when I practice on myself, it will be 10 times harder. And then when I actually do it on a real person, it'll be so much smoother. Or sometimes it'll be vice versa. It'll be easier on myself and 10 times harder on somebody else. It's like, I never know. I never know. Even if you are practicing on another person for the first time, make sure it's somebody that you know. Don't be practicing on a random person, because then they gonna be feeling like a test dummy, like, girl, what is going on here? Like, what are you doing? But if it's somebody you know and you could explain to them, like, hey, this is just a trial run, this is just me experimenting something. Like, if you don't have somebody to practice on, you can get a practice hand, but I would really advise that you try to find somebody that you trust or that is very understanding that you're a beginner. This is just a trial run, because sometimes those realistic practice hands can be pretty pricey, but the cheap ones, they don't be giving real hands. So it's like you're kind of stuck in a rock and a hard place. Most people advocate so hard for those fake hands, and sometimes those fake hands do not be it. Those fake hands do not have real eponychiums. Every person has different length of nail beds. Some people have a higher arch on their nail plate, and sometimes you have to watch that, especially when people have that higher arch, because if you put an apex there, it's going to appear higher because their nail already has that arch in it. But with those fake hands, it's just flat. Like, those nails on those fake hands are just flat, like flat. So it's going to give you an even slate. No type of imperfections or none of that, which you're going to deal with on a real hand. So just take with that as you please. What I did differently with the pigment powders that I did any other time was I put the pigment powders on top of the inhibition layer of the gel polish. Usually I would do the matte top coat, but this time I was like, let me test it out and experiment a little bit and see if it'll stick to this, until I got to this nail and I noticed that this nail didn't have an inhibition layer. Just like how the thumb had, you see how smoothly it went? When I got to this nail, it was playing in my face. But I kept trying and kept trying. It was like, okay, like, let's see, like, what's going on? And that's when I actually went to touch the nail and I noticed it's not sticky. And I was like, damn. So that's when I had to think really quickly. I was like, okay, well, let me just pull out my matte top coat and apply it and do it the way that I always do it. Because, well, it was a good little experiment. But now I know in the future to just whip out that matte top coat. I wasn't really trying to be very precise with applying the matte top coat because I already knew that I was just going to directly apply the pigment on the tips. So I wasn't really, thinking too much about, placing it here, placing it there, or trying to perfect where I was placing it. I have definitely tried different products, especially when it comes to adhering the pigment powders to the nails. I have tried glossy. I have tried no top coat, as y'all can see. But it's like one day it might work and then some days it don't. But with the matte, I don't know what kind of stuff they got in that matte, but it always adheres to the matte. So I did enough experimenting, so I'm just going to stick with my matte. As y'all can see, when I start to dab it, it starts to adhere automatically. Like, it's no like having to keep piling it up just to see the color coming through. But the look I was going for with these nails, well, as you can see from the title, it's really tropical. I wasn't trying to be very precise on the airbrush effect. I just wanted the pink in there. Like, I wasn't worried about, if it was ombre seamlessly or nothing really like that, because I have other videos where I show how I mastered that, but with these I just wanted the pink in there. It just gave the nails that extra oomph, especially in the background, which I love. Like, especially when I'm like doing like freestyle nail art, the first thing I go to is like, how I want to do the background, or what could I add extra to the background, because that's the key with nail art. It looks complicated, but it's really not. It's just layers on top of layers. So when you have different color and different layers in the background, it's going to make it look more complicated than what it actually is. Because when I tend to do freestyles, when I first started, it always looked so bland to me, and I was like, ugh. But I feel like it's because I was trying to make my work look similar to other people's work, which is what you should not do. You should really just go off the top of your head and build your own freestyle method in what you like. If the client doesn't like the freestyle, then they shouldn't book the freestyle. Plain and simple. Going into my little extra razzle dazzle, I'm just going to take that little green, well, there's the big green that I have, just to be the base for the leaves. And I'm going to mix a little brown in there because I kind of want it to be on the darker side to give it a little contrast. I'm still going to have the regular green, but the brownish green, or the darker green, is going to be there to be able to bring out those different colors in the leaves and kind of bring them to life. And that yellow that I had made earlier, I'm going to use that as like my highlight. Adding highlights to your nail art really makes it come to life. Let me show you how complicated but not complicated nail art really is. You really want to saturate the color in your brush, but with the leaves, I kind of want them to be more on the thinner side, so I'm not going to pile all that product on the brush. I'm just going to pile a little bit to where my brush is still skinny and thin. And with a light hand, I'm going to flick a line to create the base for my leaves. I honestly just had an image of the leaves in my head. I know these type of leaves have a certain name to them, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. At the tip of the leaves where I made that point at, those leaves are going to be smaller versus the leaf size on the bottom. On the bottom, I wanted them to be bigger because I want them to kind of flow up like a Christmas tree, but I don't want them to look like a Christmas tree. And I'm doing the same motion to create the lines coming from the leaves. I'm just using a really light hand because I want them to come to a point at the end, and that's what you have to do. Doing nail art, you have to learn the pressure of your brush and the amount of pressure that you're applying, because that's going to make or break if your lines are thin or thicker. I'm leaving a good amount of space in between the leaves because I wanted to go back in with that darker green that I had to add like some excess in there and give it a little contrast so it just wouldn't be one solid color. The good thing when you have a freestyle in your head, you're really not thinking about it too much. You're just thinking of the concept that you want. So with the leaf placement, I really wasn't too particular on where I wanted the leaf placement. I would do one on one nail, and however I was feeling about the next nail, that's why I put it. If I wanted to put it on the side, diagonally, close by the base of the nail, if I wanted it coming from the tip, you could switch it around whichever way you want to. I'm telling you, the more you don't think about it, the better it's going to come out. When you start to put a lot of thought into it, that's when it's going to be like, oh, like I know from experience, like I have so many sets that I have done on myself that when I put a whole lot of thought into it, it was just like, girl, what the hell is this? Not saying don't plan the set out, because that's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm saying if you stress your brain too much about what you're doing and not just letting it flow, that's when it's going to become hard. You can always have a concept. You always want to have a concept to where you can stay on track on where the nails are going and how they're going to look at the end. For example, the concept of these nails is like island, tropical, vacation. And if you have a concept of swirls or French tip or chrome, concepts like that. Now, to get the perfect highlighted effect, I'm just going to take the yellow and I'm kind of going to keep dabbing it into where it's kind of dried out on my brush. And what I mean by dried out, like the tiniest smudge is on there. So therefore, when I go to flick it on, it's barely getting on the nail, but it's still making a difference, if that makes sense. Like just a wee little bit is getting on the nail, because I don't want a big old glob, because then it's not going to be giving highlight effect. Usually to do highlights, you can go in with a white, but I chose to go in with the yellow instead of the white, because you know how when the sun reflects down on plants and it kind of gives that goldish, yellowish, sun-kissed look? That's what I was going for. I feel like if I would have did the white, it would have been too bold, too out there. Like it just would have looked like white. Like it wouldn't have been given tropical. If you're doing highlights on any other objects or characters, that's when I would prefer the white. But if you're doing something out in nature and you kind of want it to look subtle, more realistic, like, I will go in with the faded light yellow. And the same thing goes for the nail art, just like I was saying about the freestyles. What I had trouble with doing my nail art is like I put too much pressure on myself and I was thinking too hard about it. Even though I did want it to come out right, I wanted it to come out bomb, but I felt like I was like, oh my goodness, I need to get this right. This line has to be straight. But when I literally stopped and like relaxed, it came out perfectly. Not too relaxed as in if I didn't care what I was doing, but relaxed enough to where I didn't stress myself out with doing it. I would just go with the flow and relax. Woosah. Because if you sit there and you stress about if you're going to get it right then and there, you're going to be stressing for a long time. You perfecting it is going to come over time. It's not going to come right then and there. So just relax. Just sit there, put on you a little show, put you on some music, distract your mind. But I noticed that the nails were looking a little plain, so I wanted to add those hibiscus flowers in there, like those little Hawaii flowers, just to fill in the little gaps, because I feel like it went with the nails. So I was like, why not? And I love to add like some dots on anything to try to give it some pizzazz. But when I do these flowers, I do like to do like the little line stem and then add the dots to the stem. I don't know, I feel like it just adds a little extra secret touch on there. Using different tools to make your nail art easier is also going to help you get faster and ease your brain, because I always wreck my brain trying to do things like the hand painted way, instead of me just using the tools that I have to make it easier. Like, girl, either way it go, it's going to come out look at the same. It don't matter if you hand painted those circles or if you use the dotting tool. Well, in putting the dots to create the flowers, I noticed that the flowers come out looking better when you add the dots more closely, but then it can be difficult because if you add the dots too close to each other, it might merge together. But if you add them farther apart, you're going to see how far apart they are. So it's like, it's like, I don't know what to do. I just hope for the best. And I feel like all my flowers ended up coming out looking different. So it just had its little unique touches on them. With pulling the dots towards the center, I feel like it looked better when the dots were more, when you could see the lines of where you pulled out. Like, it looked like more, I don't know, I wouldn't call it natural. It gave it more detail. That's the word. Detail. It gives it more detail instead of them all looking so like bunched together to where it looks like a regular flower. You know, just little touch. Let me know down in the comments below, do y'all agree with the tips that I gave y'all? Have y'all tried those tips, or are y'all willing to experiment? Because most people, just like myself, how I was at the beginning, I was not willing to experiment. I was terrified, but then I kind of got out of that because once I started, it honestly made it easier when it came to nail art. If you find any of the tips helpful, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'm gonna see you guys in my next one.